And welcome to session 23 of this quadratics course. Now, if you notice the times, right? I've been recording this over 2 days, at random intervals, and it's been a few hours doing these recordings, right? So I'm really doing it for the betterment of the Caribbean because again, I feel like there are some people that can benefit from this, right? Even if it's just a few people, it's perfectly fine. I'll try to share this as much as I could to reach as many people as we could. So what we want to do today, we will be at the tail end, last few videos to complete the CSEC maths, right? The CSEC add maths, I will do that in a couple months' time, not right now. Whenever I get some more time, I will probably do the maths, the AdMats version of this, right? So, but this could be used for AdMats as well. Just keep that in mind. So we want to derive the quadratic formula and the formula for vertex form, right? So derive it means that I want to show you all where the formula come from because I hate to give students a formula that they don't know where it come from, right? It just looks as if it just magically appeared. Now, this is something to take note from your note. You do not need to know the deriving. You don't need to know how to do this. Right? This is to show you all where the formula comes from. But you don't need to know how to get these things. Right? Your syllabus just needs you to know the formulae alone and how to use them, but not where they come from. Right? So keep that in mind. Don't get scared if you don't entirely understand where it comes from. I just want to show you because it would be remiss of me as a maths teacher to not show you all where these things come from. So let's consider, right? Let's consider y is equal to a into x plus h squared. Sorry, y is equal to ax squared plus bx plus c. So let's complete the square on this here. So let's try and remember how to complete the square, right? First thing, you want the coefficient of x squared to be 1. So you take out that a, right? And you divide ax squared divided by a is x squared. Bx divided by a is just b over a x. Good? Plus c. Now, your next step now is you find a half of b over e. A half of b over e, right, is 1 by b is b, 2 by a is 2a. So that's plus. Remember, you have to add a half of b over a, square it, and you also subtract that same thing there. Yeah? Plus c. Now, remember what we did before. Now, this is for the people who know completing the square and how we did this. If not, drop back a few videos, at least 5 or 6 videos to look for completing the square. Right? Remember the first 3 terms inside the brackets, they collapse into the perfect square. So this becomes a into x plus whatever number is in here, b over 2a squared. Now this number here is b squared, and 2a all squared is 4a squared plus c. Now I promise you have a reason for doing this here, right? Remember, you multiply a by the brackets now to give you just that, a by the contents of the brackets, a by the square of the contents of the brackets minus. Now a by b squared over 4a squared, let me write that here. A by b squared over 4a squared. This a cancels off with one of these a's here to give me b squared over 4a. If you're not sure how, message me in the comments and I'll help you out with that, right? So b squared over 4a plus c. Good? Now, let's look at something here. Let's look at this here now. I want to make this into one fraction. Now, I would have showed you all something before, right? If I want to add a whole number to a fraction, I multiply the whole number by the denominator. So it becomes 4ac, but then I divide it by the denominator. Good? Now, let's see what this is here. This becomes a into x plus b over 2a all squared. Now, this is technically plus 4ac minus b squared. 4ac minus b squared all over 4a. Now, let's pause at this here, this thing here. Right? Let's look at this properly. And this looks close to something, right? And this looks kind of like this, right? Looks like y is equal to a into x plus h, because b over 2a, they are known numbers, they are constants, right? So when these two simplify into one number, which is this squared, plus similarly, this whole thing here is one number that you could work out. You know what a, b, and c are. So this here is like a whole number here. This is where we get the formula for the perfect square from, right? So therefore, when they ask you to convert to this form, you could use this alternative technique. Now, personally, I don't like to teach my students that, but you all could use it. So if they ask you to convert into this form, you could use these formulae. H is equal to b over 2a, and k is equal to 4ac minus b squared all over 4a. Now, you can also use this too, c minus b squared on 4a. That's also, you can also use that there. C minus b squared over 4a. This and this is the same thing, right? So, again, if you're unsure how I got any of these steps, feel free to ask. But the important thing for this section is to see where the formula comes from. Right now, I will call this equation 1 for the moment because I have a reason for that. I need that for the quadratic formula. Right, but I want to show you all how we using this here. Right, so how do we use this formula to rewrite our quadratic into this formula? So let's say, for example, rewrite in the form a into x plus h squared plus k 1. Right, sorry, I'm put this as y is equal to that. Right, sorry, using up some time there. Right, y is equal to this. So rewrite it in this form. 1, y is equal to 2 into x minus 5 squared plus 1. Right, so, sorry, I get a little bit tired there. So 2x squared minus 5x plus 1. So we want to rewrite this to look like this here. Good? So our solution, we could do this by completing the square, or we could just use this formula here. So we could let h, so we know that a is equal to 2. Yeah? A is this number here. H is equal to b over 2a. Now in this case, b is minus 5 over 2a is 2 by 2, which will give us negative 5 over 4. And look, we have h there already. And then k is this formula here. 4ac minus b squared all over 4a. So that becomes 4 by a, which is 2, by c, which is 1, minus b squared, which is minus 5 squared. Notice the brackets are on a negative number, all over 4 by 2. Now, when we simplify this number, you get 8 minus 25, right, which is negative 17. All over 4 by 2 is 8. And we're done. Look, we have A, H, and K. So therefore, this written in Vertex form is y is equal to A, which is 2, into x plus h, x minus 4 squared, plus k, which is minus 17 on 8. AHK, AHK. And that's it. This is how we use this formula. Now, the formula technique is shorter, right? Especially if you know how to deal with this a little bit faster, right? So, so this is your formula method here. Very straightforward. Too easy formula to use. And instead of using this, you could use this. But add maths people, I will tell you all to use this formula, right? And when we get to the add maths section, you'll see why. But maths people, you can feel free to use this. C minus b squared on 4a is supposed to give you the minus 17 on 8. Yeah? Now, let's go back to this here also. Let's look at this here. From equation 1. Right, so this is equation 1 over here. I'll just double copy equation 1 and bring it down underneath here. Right, so from equation 1, right, let's see if we can find another way to solve for x, right? So add the roots, right? Add the roots. Remember, we talked about it before. Y is equal to 0. So if y is 0, it means this whole side becomes equal to 0. So a into x plus b over 2a squared plus 4ac minus b squared all over 4a is equal to 0. Yeah? Now, let's just do something here, right? If I want to solve x, first thing I do is carry across, well, transpose this whole fraction. So this is add this fraction. So when it's transposed to the other side, it becomes 0 minus that is just that minus 4ac minus b squared over 4e. Now the next thing we have to do is get rid of this e. This is multiply by e. So transposing it, it becomes divide by e. When I divide this by e, the e just goes in the denominator. So it becomes 4ac minus b squared all over 4a by this a, which is 4a squared. Good? Now I want to get rid of this squared term here. Right? So the opposite of square is square root. You square root both sides. Right? But when you square root both sides, remember that it becomes plus or minus the square root of, now I can rearrange this here. So this will be 4ac, sorry, yes, so it's minus, so it's minus 4ac. So when I carry this minus up here, the 4ac becomes minus, the b squared becomes positive. So it's b squared minus 4ac all over 4a squared. Good. Now, 4 is positive, a squared is positive, which means that the underneath here is always positive. Right? Now, if I transpose this b over 2a, it becomes minus b over 2a. Now, plus or minus. When I take the square root of the top here, I don't know what that is, so you leave it as the square root of b squared minus 4ac. But the square root of 4a squared is 2a. Now, notice I have two fractions with the same denominator. So when I have, like this, if I have 8 over 10 plus 1 over 10, and as 8 plus 1 is 9 over 10. So when I have the same denominator, I could add the two fractions. So this becomes minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And this thing here is what you call the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula. Now, what is this used for? You notice where we started off. We started this at the roots. So, remember your roots are x values. So that's what we find in here. So the quadratic formula, this is used to find the roots. Yeah, so instead of using the perfect square to find the roots, if a question does ask you, find the roots of 2x squared plus 5x plus 4, you don't need to complete the square. You could first of all use the quadratic formula. There's one way shorter that you know already, but we didn't talk about it yet, and we're going into that in the next video, when we will also learn how to use the quadratic formula to find the roots. So just to give all a recap here, no, you don't need to know, the derivation. What you need to know is the formula. So you see this formula? You have to know this formula, and you have to know how to use it. Similarly, this formula, you have to know this formula and know how to use it. Good. So in the next video, we will be learning how to use the quadratic formula to find the roots, and also how to find the roots by factorization. All right, and that will be our second to last video. So with that being said, that's it for today, or that's it for this session, sorry. And until the next session, see you all and stay safe, everyone.